I'm just going to talk a little bit about a pre-recorded audition. This is when a casting director, a director, or a casting professional asks you to send in a tape. So you're going to record this and then send it in via YouTube or Vimeo, right? So just like Johnathan says, you want to stay in frame. You can use your hands, but you want to stay in frame. So with this, you're going to slate. And what a slate is, your name, the title of the piece, and then the character. So I'm just going to demonstrate as if I was presenting one piece. Hello, my name is Sujotta, and I'll be doing a piece from Sunset Baby, character Nina. And then you present. So between the slate and your monologue, you just want to take that time to adjust and settle in. Remember, this is your audition. We want you to be your best, to do your best. We're rooting for you. So take as much time as you need, right? So if you're doing two pieces, it's like so. Hello, my name is Sujotta, and I'll be doing two pieces for you today. My first piece is from Sunset Baby, character Nina, and my second piece will be By the Way, Meet Vera Stark, character Lottie. And then go into your piece. When you have two pieces, just remember to make a distinct transition in between two so that we know that you're shifting characters. However, another tip that you can do, you can separate your pieces. So you can present one, complete that monologue, then present the other one and complete that monologue. And then after that, you just say thank you, and then that's your tape. So with that tape, you want to make sure you trim the beginning and you trim the end. And we ask, I know for Actors Theater, and I can only maybe assume that other casting professionals love YouTube links that are unlisted. And we just ask that you keep it unlisted because, you know, anybody can check out your material, especially if you don't want them to. So you unlist it, you send us the link, and then we're the only people that can see it. So that's just a few tips about self-taping and recording for one person. So now we're going to move on to what is becoming a big thing is Zoom video conferences. So Johnathan is just going to talk a little bit about that when it's just you. So this is without a reader. Johnathan?
Awesome. So what Sujotta just described was the self-tape audition where it's pre-recorded. You edit it down so you have a lot more control of what you're presenting, right? But one of the downfalls of it, why we don't just solely use pre-taped auditions that people are submitting, because we do lose out on the opportunity for us to get to know someone and be able to interact with them. So that's why some casting professionals out there might prefer to do kind of like a video conference style audition. So that could be on any platform like Skype, Zoom. Haven't heard of someone doing House Party, but maybe that's their thing. Or any other format that kind of gives them the ability to have a one-on-one conversation with you during your audition. So then that way they can maybe able to kind of give some, get to know you, ask some questions, also kind of giving notes. So they might have you do your monologue, but then they might ask you to adjust it a little bit, right? So the way that you should look at video conference auditions is the same way that you would look at an audition that would happen in person, right? So think about when you enter the room, how you're going to enter the room. So be prepared that once you log on to whatever platform that is that you're ready. So if you're not quite ready, you need a moment, make sure that you keep your camera off and have those settings turned off. It's always great if you're using especially new software for that to kind of double check and do a test run with someone to see if there's something that you can control on there to make sure that your camera isn't immediately on. Most software will prompt you to ask you if you want to turn on your camera and if you want to turn on your microphone. So once you're in the room, don't feel like you need to immediately rush into your material. Take that as an opportunity. People want to get to know you. People want to get to know who they're going to potentially be working with. So make sure that you take time to introduce yourself. Allow others to introduce themselves, ask questions. People love it when you ask them, how are you doing, right? Because that's just showing that you are acknowledging them that they are a person too, and that you are interested in having a genuine exchange with them. So once you're ready and you've kind of made those pleasantries and you've begun the conversation, it's kind of often time to shift into your work. So one of the things that you can do there is it's always helpful to start by slating. If they haven't said otherwise, so unless they say don't slate, it's helpful to slate because then someone knows what material you're doing, right? You don't have to introduce yourself, so you don't have to go through the whole script. All I would do, right, after having introduced myself and having who else is in the room, I would say, so today I'm going to be doing one piece. I'll be performing Romeo for Romeo and Juliet. Then I'll give myself a moment and then go right into the material as well. So that's something that you should also plan for in terms of how you have it set up. So using kind of the same setup that we talked about earlier, you want to make sure that you know how far you can move before you're outside of the frame, because if you start taking too much movement, that's losing you. We get to see a lot of your performance, and that's what we want to see. Is we want to make sure that we have you, and we get to see all the work that you've prepared, right? So once you're there and you're giving your pieces, you could pause there. The best thing to do is to deliver your pieces from this place that you start. So sometimes when we do video chats or video conferencing, our impulse might be to start seated and then move up, unless your monologues are both delivered from a seated position. So you framed it and you've got it set up so that you're in a chair. I suggest that you start your full audition from where you're going to be delivering your monologues. That way, you're not spending as much time trying to rearrange the camera, make sure that everything's fine, make sure that the lighting's still good. And instead, you're focusing more on what you're there to do, which is to present your work. So once you deliver your two pieces and you're ready to do that, and one or two pieces, depending on what's asked for, or your music, make sure that you have everything ready, right? So if you are presenting any singing or any instruments, make sure they have those ready, nearby, tuned as much as possible that you may need to, or if you have any audio files that you're have them ready on like another device if possible, so that way you can play those and people can hear you sing. Whatever you can prepare ahead of time and minimize in the audition is best. So once you deliver your pieces, what I recommend is that often directors and other casting professionals, like I said, are going to want to take this opportunity to give you any notes. So a note isn't necessarily a judgment to say whether or not you did something bad or you did something wrong. But the purpose of a note is to see how are you as an actor, how are you as a collaborator? Can you interpret what they were saying? Can you go for what they were wanting to do? So if they may say, okay, this time you do it and really try to do it in a way that you're convincing someone, right? That's not saying that the first time you weren't doing a good job at that, but they're just trying to look for someone to emphasize that a little bit stronger. So give yourself some room, give them the room to do that. They might be taking some notes. Sometimes there's a bit of a lag in the video and the audio. So they might be finishing up and waiting for everything to be received on their end before they move on to giving notes. Make sure that you leave room for that as well. Then, once everything's over, if someone doesn't have any questions for you that may or may not have them in that moment, sometimes folks just need to see the monologue and the material. Again, it's not a judgment of how good you are doing. It's really just saying how do you fit in the world, right? So what are the roles and what are the pieces that you bring and yourself that are able to fit in and kind of work together on that full vision of what they're trying to make happen through the audition process. And so if they don't have any questions, the best thing to do is just sign off and say just a pleasant thank you. Thanks for meeting you. I'm glad to meet you if it's someone that you're meeting for the first time. Good seeing you again if it's someone that you've met before, and then just simply sign up. Yeah, so those are kind of the basics in terms of a video conference audition. It's always great to test it out. Like I said before, sometimes you might think things that you're capable of hearing aren't coming through the microphone, so it's always helpful to have someone test it out. Since you might be doing this video conference at home, your neighbor's lawnmower might be going off next door, right? You might be hearing that, but someone that's on the other end may not be able to. And as we saw earlier when I started talking, I thought that my microphone was able to catch my voice a lot better than I was accustomed to, because I usually do this type of stuff off of my laptop. So that's something that I just needed to adjust, right? So practicing makes it really easy. So that way, when you're in front of the camera and doing the thing, you got to keep focus on doing the thing, right? As opposed to those kind of other tiny things that might be on the periphery. So that's how you do kind of a basic self-tape, or not self-tape, but a video conference audition without a reader. So that's meaning all that you're doing in those purposes is just delivering a monologue. Next, Sujotta's going to talk about how do you do a video conference audition with a reader.
Hi. So it's basically similar to everything that Johnathan has explained. You want to prepare. You want to make sure that all your material is ready to go. So one thing that I didn't address with the self-tape, which goes along with the self-tape in this, it's where you want your eyes to focus. So just like an in-person audition, you don't want to look at directly at the person that you're auditioning for. If you are speaking with a person, as we all know, we want to make sure we see them. So if my camera is right here where I'm pointing, I want to look a little off to the right, or excuse me, the right, this is my right, or to the left. So basically, I'm just presenting myself a little off, and I'm finding my spot on the wall, and I'm presenting. So it's basically like an in-person audition. You have a reader there, sitting there to your right or to your left, and you use that same method. So it's no different than an in-person audition. You just want to make sure you don't look directly into the camera, and find your focus somewhere in the room. But make sure that you're a little profiled, because you don't want to turn this way because I can't see your eyes, I can't see your face, you know? So just a little profile if you're going to turn. If you're talking to two people, I'm talking to this person, and then I focus to this person. So just making sure it's to the side, but we still can see your face off to the side. So that's just the thing with a reader. Most of these tips that we're giving you are very similar to in-person auditions. The main thing is we want to see your personality. We want you to have fun. So enjoy yourself. And it's just a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to self-tape and to have a Zoom audition. It takes a lot of the stress off. So just go in, knock them dead, and have a good time. One thing that I would like Johnathan to talk about, he taught me something new the other day. And so I just would like for him to talk about earphones, because I am a performer as well. And I know sometimes we want to use earphones, whether it be to hear the person or listen to music when we're singing. So if Johnathan can just talk a little bit about earphones and in auditioning. I think he's going to get his earphones.
Yeah, so luckily the technology for headphones has improved a lot recently. So if you do have access to kind of like a small in-ear headphone, this might be something that you want to take advantage of, right? I think the important part to do that is that when you do start the video conference audition, is just to acknowledge that you have headphones in. I wouldn't recommend anything larger than just like a simple in-ear headphone. It could be if it has a simple cord that connects the two earbuds, that might be helpful. But if you have an over-the-ear headphone, that might be too big and too distracting from what you're performing, right? So just kind of like how we talked about, if you have stuff on the wall, things that might take the focus away from your presentation, or headphones that might be sliding off if you're really, getting into the moment and getting into the physicality of the character. You don't want that to be a distraction. So definitely don't try to have the first time that you're presenting the monologue or the side to a casting professional be the first time that you're trying it with headphones, right? But there's a couple tips and tricks that we would recommend for video conferencing that might help. So right now, if you're joining us on Zoom, you may have, when you first logged in, it may have given you the option to dial in or join by like either your computer audio or your device audio. So dialing in means that you're actually making a phone call. So if you're in an area where you're like, okay, my Wi-Fi is pretty good, but I know that my phone signal, my cell phone signal is really strong. You might want to dial in, and by using something like headphones or muting both of your camera, your microphone, and the speakers on your computer, you could turn it on to speakerphone. So that way, that's what's capturing your voice, that's feeding through. So even if there's a little bit of a lag on the internet connection, it'll still come through more consistently because it's not your Wi-Fi that you're depending on or your cellular data network that you're depending on that moment. It's really going straight through the cell phone signal as well. If you have corded headphones with a microphone piece, sometimes you could put those inside. So Sujotta, if you want to give a hi, so then that way.
Oh, I think hi. So I have these, can you see me? Hello.
Perfect. No, that's great. So if you have corded headphones, those can work too. A good trick is like if you look at Sujotta's screen, is putting them in your ear and then tucking them behind your head. One of the tricky things behind that though is that you're then going to have it flopping around, right? And that's right where the microphone piece is going to be. So you don't want to have the sound of the microphone hitting your shirt or your collar be the sound that the casting professionals hear. You want to make sure that it's your voice as much as possible. If you don't have, if that doesn't work for you, if you don't have wireless headphones, don't worry about it. That's just an additional option. Don't feel like you have to invest in expensive technology for it. Most of the things that you already have work just as fine. These might just be a little couple of extra things. Whoever's on the other side of the camera, so whoever you're in the video conference with, they will let you know if there's any connections issues, so that way they make sure that it's as equitable as possible. So trust that they'll let you know if your audio is not coming through or if there are any issues. I think it's kind of the norm now that we all are very brave in telling each other when we can't hear each other or when we're muted. So don't feel like someone's going to do you wrong like that and keep you so that they can't hear you, because they want to hear you, and that's why they're there for, and that's why they want to meet with you as well. So those are kind of a couple of extra audio tricks that you could use as well. So if you have a wireless bud style headphones, those are something that you could do to improve the audio quality that you're sending through. And then now I'll turn it back over to Sujotta. Yeah.
So that is pretty much what we wanted to bring to you today. But however, we would love to answer any questions that you might have. I know, I don't know, Erica, are you leading the question and answer? I know someone tapped in and asked about hair. So I'm just going to read that before we move on. Possible to address hairstyle for a biracial woman, natural, straightened. So, as you can see, I am natural, and what I would say to that is just like your clothing, just like your material, however you feel the most comfortable. For me, when I'm auditioning, depending on the character, I might pull my hair back, I might even straighten it. I know that if I'm playing someone that is very, very sexy, how I feel the most sexiest, or creating words here, using my words, but I like to press my hair. That gives me an excuse to press my hair. So you can press it, you can pull it back outside your face, you can wear an afro. Just like your clothing, if it's called for a certain thing in the production, for the audition, go for it. But I wouldn't say spend a lot of money by dyeing your hair, cutting your hair just to fit a role. If you're booked for that production, the theater will take care of all of that. You can just, be similar to what you're auditioning for. So,
yeah, I'll add to that and say, so kind of what Sujotta was saying, Once you're given the opportunity and to accept an offer for a role, that should be something that's also discussed either contractually or in person, or in person and then confirmed contractually as well. So that's something that also you want to have a conversation about in terms of like what it means further down the line. So the purpose of auditions, I'd also, just kind of say what we were talking about earlier and kind of what Sujotta was talking about now, is that whatever makes you the most confident, right? Theater does not happen solely by the actor in most cases. So there are going to be often like a team of costuming professionals, and that's going to be part of the things that they'll incorporate with the presentation. Most casting professionals are able to look past just like the way that we're able to look past what you're wearing in that moment, right? So if it's like for auditions of Christmas Carol, we understand that not everyone's we expect everyone to not dress in period Victorian garb. If that's what makes you the most comfortable, then that's always good to know. But we understand that that's not how most people like to dress in their day-to-day now in 2020. So we don't expect you also to have your hair changed in that way. Again, it's the acting, let the acting speak for itself. You don't have to make sure that your hair and other things do for you.
Erica.
So is there anybody in the chat here that has a question? You can go ahead and open up your video and unmute yourself if you have a question for Johnathan or Sujotta. Or you can raise your hand if you go to participants and raise your hand. I'll see it and I can unmute you.
Or they can write it in the chat.
Or you can write it in the chat. That's true too. And we're recording this session and we're gonna put this session on Facebook afterwards because we got disconnected. So we don't have Facebook watching right now, so.
Well, while we're waiting on questions, I just want to let you know that we are accepting submissions for our general auditions. The last day to submit is tomorrow by 6 p.m. If you didn't really have time to submit, just contact me at space@actorstheater.org, and I can just give you the instructions and probably give you an extension to submit your auditions. So auditions, the deadline is tomorrow by 6 p.m., but just contact me if you would really like to audition and I can send you the information.
And what are general auditions for?
So like I was saying earlier with picking out monologues for general auditions. So general auditions are for our season. So you're auditioning for the season. You're just auditioning in general. So for example, if y'all saw on our website or Facebook, we're doing Dracula, Carol, Romeo and Juliet. Those are three of the shows that we are doing. We are doing more. You know that we do Humana Festival. So basically, you're just coming in, you're showing us your talent, and we're just seeing where we can place you within our season. So you have the opportunity to audition for 7 plays instead of one specific play. So that's the highlight of a general audition. So instead of just auditioning for Romeo and Juliet, which you totally can, if you audition for the season and then Romeo and Juliet comes back up, you can come right back on in and audition for Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, Amanda says for the deadline tomorrow, what needs to be turned in?
Okay, so it depends if you're an equity actor or you're a non-equity actor. If you're an equity actor, we're asking for 2 monologues, a monologue or a song, and then optional, you can play an instrument. So let me take that back. For non-equity and equity, it's the same thing. You can either do 2 monologues or 1 monologue and 1 song. And you can play an instrument. Everything just needs to be in a time span of 3 3 minutes. The only thing we're asking, if you go on our website, if you're equity, we have a form for equity actors. And if you're non-equity, we have a form for non-equity. And we also have a form for youth. So from the ages of 5 to 18, you have a form all to yourself. We're just asking for a poem, a short story, and a song. And if you play an instrument, that as well.
Noel wants to know, he said, this is a question along different lines. If a theater has not announced what shows they are doing, how does an actor go about picking audition material?
I believe me and Johnathan can both talk to this. You're just picking material that you're most comfortable with, material that you relate to, because we just want to see, the best in you. We want to see your personality. For like me, I'm not really a comedic person, so I always navigate to more dramatic pieces, more intense pieces, because that's what I relate to more. That's what I feel most comfortable doing. However, I do say if you want to stretch yourself, do things that you aren't as comfortable doing. But the goal is for us to see what you can bring to a production, and we want to see your confidence. So pick anything and everything that you feel most comfortable with. Johnathan, if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I would say that Sujotta talked a little bit about this earlier, but if you're familiar with kind of like the style of work that a theater might do, right? So at Actors Theater, we tend to do kind of shows that are often very contemporary, so written recently by living playwrights, or classical shows, right? Like Dracula and Christmas Carol. So if you have the option to present something that kind of gives that whole, like the extremes of that spectrum, so something that maybe a Shakespearean piece or something that's in Victorian text, that's going to kind of take care of the classic realm. And then if there's something contemporary, something that kind of you, like Sujotta was saying, relate to the character and it features you, do that as well. I think a couple quick tips that we would share is also, we get to do a lot of auditions, and some of the simple things that we often get to see that really excite us in an audition room is when there's a conflict in the monologue, right? So even if you're talking to one person and there's still something, there's a reason why you're talking, right? And if that's clear, if us as an audience understand why you're saying this to a specific person as much as possible, that's also really good to see. Because that shows us more about how you would interact or their other characters around you as well. So it's different than like delivering a speech where you are just kind of talking to whoever is listening. It's also very helpful when you're choosing material that's very specific to something, because then it's just a matter of like us getting to know how you are and then how we can plug you into a bigger production with a greater ensemble.
Okay, are there any more questions? How do you go about having gender neutral auditions? Like, should someone assume that it's okay to come in and audition for a female role and they're a male, or vice versa? Or can they just do it? Like, how do you all feel about that?
I would say that so I think this actually kind of goes even beyond gender in terms of like often we get the question of like, is this something that I can audition for, right? So I think that's kind of what that question is a part of. So if there isn't anything specific that's stated in the description of it, most times that means that it's very open to who can play for it as well. If the character is male or female, and that says something explicit to there, most times there's someone, if you are gender non-binary, gender fluid, or gender queer in any way, that's open to the casting that's available there as well. If that's something that you don't see reflected in yourself, right? So when you're talking about gender fluidity or gender non-conforming, we're talking about someone that can embody the full spectrum of the genders of gender. But if there is something that is on the polarity of it, so if it's kind of on the binary of sense, right? So it's male or female, and that's not something that's been explicit to in the casting notice, I would say that that's something that I would recommend reaching out to that casting professionals and saying like, hi, I'm interested in auditioning for this, right? And this is, this is who I am, and that maybe you don't have to express like what your gender or how you identify to someone, but that's something that may, given the context of the play, that's something that someone might want to be conscious of, right? Because we know who tells the story is just as important as what the story is as well. And sometimes that may be necessary in order for a story to be told truthfully, for someone that's representing the identity of that character to also be portrayed by someone that is presenting that as well. So that's what I would say in terms of the openness. Oftentimes it's stated like all roles are open to all genders and races. So then if that's stated explicitly there, you're like, okay, cool. That means that I can, like Scrooge can be played by a woman. Scrooge can be, or the Ghost of Christmas Past, which is traditionally and often cast by a femme presenting person, is open still to whomever may want to do that. So it doesn't have to be someone that's, on the binary of male or female. It's something that's open to it as well. Don't be afraid to ask questions ahead of time. That's something, sometimes it's actually pointing out something that's like, oh yeah, we wanted to see that. We are excited to see all genders for this role. And that's something that we want to do. That's good that we actually, someone reminded us that we do want to open it up to as many people as possible. Or it could also be the candidate answer of like, actually it is very important that this role be portrayed by this gender, given the context of the play. Right, so it's not in terms of a barrier, but it's about what's serving the story and what's going to help that storytelling to make sure that we're being the best at our practice and engaging with that as well.
Yeah. Just like what Johnathan says, he basically covered everything. Just pay attention to the casting breakdown that we post on, a lot of theaters post on the AEA website, playbill.com, on Facebook, and you'll see with the descriptions, it'll say open casting, or it'll say male identifying, female identifying. So just pay attention to those things. But most importantly, if you would like to show us something different, we love to see it, because you give us ideas that we, like Johnathan said, you give us ideas that we hadn't thought about. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to play a certain role, you're free to do so. Come in, audition, and we love when people change our minds about things. So that's the beauty of theater, is always changing.
I love it. Amanda said she loved the female Van Helsing.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't look like we have any more questions. I can wait another minute or so just to see if anybody wants to. You've got another minute to ask questions, guys.
I'm just going to type my email address in if anybody wants to audition and send in a tape that, you might have thought that you didn't know how to self-tape. So I'm just typing my email address in here. So you can just shoot me an email and say, you know what, I saw the workshop and I want to audition. And if you need any tips, I can give you tips on self-taping offline and give you an extension.
Additionally, if you have an interest in auditioning for the professional training company, you're welcome to email me. My email is jruiz, so that's JRUIZ @actorstheater.org. So Actors Theater spelled with an R-E. We open up our auditions every year in November, so that's something that we kind of announce our full audition schedule for that. We are done auditioning for next season, so that's for the 2020-2021 season. But if that's something that you want to be interested in for future auditions, please, we'd love to meet you.
Yes.
Okay, this was great. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
It was fun.
Oh, Norman's clapping his hands.
But
We'll see you all in the audition room.
thank you.
Bye, guys.